What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded. I am your host, Eric, and today we are going to talk about some, what do we call this? What do we call today's subject matter? It's an old article that came out of the Workers' Vanguard, but it has to do with the IBEW. Now, if you remember, last year, Local 46 Limited Energy went on strike for a little while, and then they came up with their contract. The strike was forced to no longer be. I don't know the specs behind that. I know that the limited energy unit was on strike and then they were not, and there was a CBA that was agreed upon. Well, Workers Vanguard wrote an article about that situation because most IBEW locals have a no strike clause which prevents them from being able to strike. But the limited energy unit was able to strike for a little bit. And this has to do with reform. You know, there's a lot of folks in the IBEW, there's a lot of IBEW members who really do not like the fact that when the contract is up or whenever something's foul and wrong, they have a no strike clause and they're not allowed to strike. And they have another clause where it forces contracts to go to arbitration, and you don't get to really use the leverage of the strike in order to negotiate a better contract. And a lot of our members are not happy about that. Well, whatever, you know, it's kind of is what it is until it ain't, right? It is what it is until it's reformed and it's the no strike clause is done away with, and we're able to utilize the leverage of our labor to negotiate better contracts for our members. And so the Workers Vanguard issued an article, and this had to do with lessons learned from the Seattle Limited Energy strike. And so let's dive into the article. Again, this is it's a controversial topic. So let's dive in and let's see what the author has to say. Lessons of Seattle Limited Energy strike. What way forward for the IBEW? Again, this is an older article, so bear with me on the timing. Earlier this year, the IBEW Local 46 Limited Energy Unit in Seattle waged a 10-week strike. This collective action captured the attention of union members far beyond the Puget Sound region, especially among those in the IBEW's lower tiers. LE electricians earn substantially less than inside wiremen and, like much of the country's urban working class, are not able to live where they work. They walked off the job in April to pry what they needed from the hands of the NECA employers. When the dust settled, though, they had been made to accept a contract that contained a below-inflation wage increase and no paid time off. It is important to understand why this happened in order to chart a way forward for the union. On one level, it's not so hard to figure out what went wrong. Despite the fighting spirit of the 1,000-strong Local 46 LE electricians, they could not escape injury from the double-barrel shotgun of the union's tiers, which pit one unit against another, and the project labor agreements which ban any strike activity. This shotgun was wielded by the Local 46 leadership in service to the NECA bosses, and it proved fatal to the LE unit's strike. At the strike's outset, the Local 46 business manager declared, "No more second-class citizens, no more big unit here, little unit there." But these fine words found no reflection in the conduct of the strike. The IBEW leadership had apprentices cross the picket lines and, in the name of abiding by the PLAs and the equivalent community workforce agreements with the city of Seattle, had at least 1/4 of LE electricians stay on the job. The picket lines were kept small and extremely porous and limited to a handful of job sites at any one time. A strike is a class battle. If the union does not rally all its own forces, much less its working class allies in the rest of the trades and beyond, to shut things down, it is all but surrendering in advance because the bosses are not going to show similar restraint. The LE electricians fought the best they could under the circumstances and voted by wide margins to reject multiple contract proposals until the union bureaucracy served up the final offer and called an end to the strike before a vote was taken. By that point, the inside wireman's contract had expired, but they were to remain on the job at all costs. NECA threw some extra money their way while rebuffing calls to address work rule and safety concerns. So, the inside wiremen lost out too. Here is the problem of the tiers and PLAs in a nutshell for the IBEW across the country. The union is left weaker and every electrician worse off. It does not have to be like this, but to find the way out, it is necessary to dig deeper to the root of the problem. The IBEW's overall trajectory is indistinguishable from that of organized labor as a whole. The triumph of the U.S. ruling class as the world's sole superpower a few decades ago was accompanied by a war on labor and a push for globalization, which hollowed out the country's manufacturing base. The IBEW and other unions were put back on their heels, and bitterly anti-union outfits went on the march. The reaction of the IBEW bureaucracy was, and remains, to bind the union ever more closely to the NECA employers in order to head off the mortal threat posed by the contractors who never hire union labor. As a result, many new tiers, like the construction electricians, the construction wiremen, were introduced, and the PLAs spread like wildfire, all to win union jobs and bring new members into the IBEW. So what has been the result? Over this period, the share of union work in the electrical industry has dropped fourfold, and the union is divided in almost every imaginable way. IW versus LE versus CE, CW, local versus local, white versus black, men versus women, just to name a few. The contractors hire cheaper CECWs to perform work that previously would have gone to inside wiremen, and the CECWs in turn resent their limited prospects of ever moving up in the union. The lower tiers, CE, CW, LE, and the like, are very much treated like second-class citizens, as are travelers in higher-paying locals like San Francisco's Local 6. Historically, excluded from the IBEW altogether, today, black workers are heavily confined to the lower tiers, replicating their segregation at the bottom of society. Racial segregation has long been an invaluable tool for the bosses, allowing them to keep the black population in wretched conditions and use that as a battering ram against white workers. Organizing the unorganized is a burning question, but the IBEW is throttling itself and looking more and more like a non-union operation every day thanks to its leadership's commitment to making NECA as competitive as possible in the contractors' bidding wars. Practices like spinning, which I hate, by the way. I can't stand that a contractor can just spin a member, put in a call for a journeyman, the journeyman shows up and we go, nope, not you. You go back to the hall, send me somebody else. That's bullshit. So practices like spinning, which is turning back those dispatched by the union hall, as I just explained, and at-will hiring, permitting layoffs on any grounds, give the employers the final say on hiring. This further fuels divisions inside the union and erodes safety on the job. As the bosses inevitably weed out union militants, safety advocates, and black and women workers, market recovery programs and targeting funds are outright union subsidies of NECA and drive down everyone's take-home pay while being touted as effective organizing tools. Whatever short-term jobs are gained, it is not worth the cost of keeping the union locked in a downward spiral. Take the PLAs, the centerpiece of the union bureaucracy's organizing strategy. Increasingly desperate to slow the union's slide, IBEW leaders are increasingly approaching developers with union-inspired PLA proposals. In addition to their no-strike clauses, the PLAs often contain local hiring provisions, which undermine the union hiring hall while claiming to promote diversity and inclusion. For example, the City of Seattle's CWAs mandate the hiring of workers from economically distressed zip codes as priority workers. Black and women workers are concentrated in such specially designated labor pools, which often constitute the union's lower tiers. This must be changed. Their status brings down the entire union and is the source of heightened racial and other animosities among the union ranks. Some organizing. The PLAs are usually negotiated by liberal Democratic politicians, including Biden-Harris on the federal level, to paint themselves as pro-union and pro-diversity when in reality, they are lighting the powder keg that can only blow apart the IBEW. Clinging to NECA will be the downfall of the IBEW. The union can regain strength only by standing on its own 2 feet. There must be a serious effort to organize the unorganized across the board, not by granting concessions to NECA, but by taking the fight to the contractors. Non-union job sites should be picketed and shut down while making the case for union membership to the electricians working there and opening the IBEW's doors to them. Such a fight would have to be consciously organized to counter the pressure of the sweet-tasting PLA poison and the bosses' sweet-talking Democratic and Republican politicians. Then it would be able to not only inject fresh blood into the union, but also propel its transformation into a class-independent force to secure the needs of all electricians and the broader working class. Making the IBEW into an organization that non-union electricians feel compelled to join requires a parallel fight to counter the divisions inside the union. The tiers must be abolished and equal pay and benefits for equal work at the highest level established for all electricians irrespectively of specialty and location. All practices that discriminate against travelers, the CWCEs, and other lower tiers, black workers and women must be rooted out. No second-class citizens. To cut through the boss's divide and rule diversity schemes and solidify the bonds between the IBEW and the multiracial working class as a whole, the union must establish full control over hiring, together with union-run, NECA-paid recruitment and training programs for black people and women. An important step towards putting hiring and safety under the union's purview would be to fight to abolish spinning and at-will hiring. Jobs for all could be ensured by striving to reduce the length of the workday at no loss in pay, so even the most senior inside wiremen benefit from the shared work. The Local 46 LE electricians should be saluted for sticking out their necks against NECA. Their defeat will not have been in vain if rank-and-file IBEW electricians answer the call to try to clear the PLAs and tiers from the path of union struggle. The demonstrated determination of militant electricians to wage this fight and organize the unorganized would point the way forward to winning the war. Having the working class run in industry and society as well. With that in mind, we propose the following program for IBEWers. There's 4 points here. Number 1, organize the unorganized through class struggle methods. Down with the PLAs. Picket lines mean do not cross. Number 2, abolish all the tiers. Equal pay and benefits for equal work at the highest levels for all. No second-class union members. Number 3, for union control of hiring and safety. No spinning or at-will hiring. Union-run, company-paid minority recruitment and training programs. Number 4, no reliance on Democrats and Republicans. For a workers' party that fights for the interests of our class. Hear, hear. I gotta say that this article is well written. It points out a lot of the problems that I personally agree with. I think we do have some problems that we need to work out. I do believe we need to organize the unorganized and need to organize all electricians into equal pay for equal work. I agree with all of that. So this article is fantastic. It's a good read. I'm going to put it in the description box for you guys so you can read it yourselves and you can see what this author was talking about. We have a union that belongs to us, the members, the rank and file. And if we are to move this union in a way that benefits all of us, we have got to become organized. We have got to stand together, and we have got to lead the officers so that they do our bidding and we eliminate the tiers and we start to stand on business. My name's Eric. You're watching Union Minded. Remember that the fight is not left and right. It is up and down. It's going to take solidarity to win always. Each one teach one. Get out there and reach one. And remember, there can be no union without you and I front and center. So let's go. Peace.